The countdown to one of the biggest contests in world rugby has entered its final stage, with Rassie Erasmus and the Springboks preparing for a 4-test battle against the All Blacks that promises to test every part of both teams. The opening match of rugby's greatest rivalry is scheduled for August 22nd at Ellis Park, and the excitement around the series is already building rapidly as South Africa and New Zealand prepare to meet repeatedly in what could become one of the most important stretches of Test rugby this year. Both nations have won 2 of the last 4 Rugby World Cups. Both have enormous expectations attached to their famous jerseys, and both arrive with compelling reasons to believe they can dominate the series. For Rassie Erasmus, however, there is no attempt to hide the scale of the challenge. The Springboks head coach has described the upcoming series as an extremely demanding tournament and compared it to the knockout stages of a Rugby World Cup because his team will face one of the world's best opponents week after week. That comparison perfectly captures the mentality required for this rivalry. There will be very little opportunity to relax, experiment, or recover mentally because every test will carry enormous significance. The Springboks know exactly what they are facing, but they also enter the contest with confidence after an unbeaten Nations Championship campaign in July and a gritty 17-10 victory over Argentina in their most recent test. That victory over Los Pumas was particularly useful for Erasmus because he deliberately rotated his squad, giving players who had featured less during the Nations Championship and those returning from injury an opportunity to regain test match sharpness before the arrival of the All Blacks. Rather than simply sending his strongest possible team to Argentina, Erasmus used the match as another part of the wider preparation process, and the result was a competitive contest that gave several players valuable minutes in the green and gold jersey. Now that group has returned to the Springboks camp in Johannesburg, joining the players who remained in South Africa and the experienced Deon Fourie, who has been recalled as the team prepares for the greatest rivalry. That depth could become extremely important during a 4-test series because injuries, fatigue, suspensions, and tactical changes can dramatically alter a team selection from one week to the next. Erasmus has spent years building a squad capable of surviving those challenges, and the current Springboks group is once again demonstrating how carefully the coaching staff manages its resources. The decision to rotate players against Argentina was not simply about resting established stars. It was about making sure that the wider squad was prepared to contribute when the pressure became greatest. That philosophy could be critical against the All Blacks, especially because New Zealand are arriving in South Africa with genuine momentum. Under new head coach Dave Rennie, the tourists have already played 2 franchise matches on their South African tour and remain unbeaten on the trip. Their opening performance against the Stormers in Cape Town was far from easy, but the All Blacks eventually secured a 38-21 victory after overcoming a determined challenge. They then produced a much more convincing performance against the Sharks, crushing the Durban side 54-0 in a dominant display that showcased their attacking potential and defensive improvement. The contrast between those 2 matches is important because it demonstrates how quickly the All Blacks are adapting to the demands of South African rugby. The Stormers tested their patience and physicality, while the Sharks were unable to cope with the intensity and accuracy of New Zealand. Now Rennie has one final franchise challenge against the Bulls before his squad turns its complete attention towards the Springboks. That match could provide the All Blacks coaching staff with final answers about selection, combinations, and form, but after that the real battle begins. From the moment the first test kicks off at Ellis Park, the pressure will be completely different. The Springboks will not simply be another provincial opponent. They are the back-to-back Rugby World Cup champions, and Erasmus has created a team that thrives on pressure. The All Blacks will therefore have to deal with a level of physicality and tactical sophistication that they have not yet encountered on this tour. At the same time, South Africa will know that New Zealand have developed a more adventurous attacking style under Rennie, and that creates a fascinating tactical question for Erasmus. Will the Springboks attempt to dominate the game through their traditional strengths, or will they adjust their strategy to deal with the increased attacking threat of the All Blacks? The answer will likely be a mixture of both. Erasmus is unlikely to abandon the identity that has made South Africa so successful. The Springboks will still want to dominate collisions, control territory, pressure the opposition at set piece, and use their kicking game intelligently. But their preparation will also need to account for the movement and skill that Rennie has brought into the All Blacks attack. Players such as Beauden Barrett, Jordy Barrett, Richie Mo'unga, Artie Savia, and the other New Zealand attacking weapons can punish defensive mistakes very quickly. The Springboks will therefore need to be disciplined as well as physical. One missed tackle or one poorly defended phase could create the kind of space that New Zealand have been trying to manufacture under Rennie. That is why the opening test could become a battle between the Springboks' defensive pressure and the All Blacks' attacking ambition. However, there is another factor that could influence the series: preparation. Erasmus has already confirmed that his coaching staff and players have been working behind the scenes during the past 2 weeks. While some members of the squad traveled to Argentina, others remained in South Africa and continued preparing for the arrival of New Zealand. That split allowed the Springboks to manage workloads while still ensuring that the team was developing the areas that needed improvement. Now that everyone is back together, the coaching staff can begin fine-tuning the final details. This is where Erasmus has traditionally excelled. He understands that major test matches can be decided by tiny details, whether it is a defensive alignment, a set-piece variation, a kicking strategy, or a replacement decision in the final 20 minutes. The Springboks have built their recent success on preparation as much as physical ability, and the 4-test series will provide another opportunity for that preparation to be tested. The confirmation that Johan Grobler and Ilrai Lu will return to the Springboks squad after representing the Bulls against the All Blacks is another important development. Both players were released to feature for their club before returning to the test squad on August 16th. Their involvement against the tourists gives Erasmus additional information about how they handle the All Blacks physically and tactically, while their subsequent return provides the coaching staff with another selection option for the opening test. It also illustrates the unusual nature of this rivalry. Players who normally prepare alongside their international teammates can suddenly find themselves facing the very people they will join again only days later. That is the reality of modern test rugby, and Erasmus will be hoping the experience benefits the Springboks rather than the tourists. For Grobler and Lu, the match against the All Blacks will provide a valuable opportunity to experience the physical demands and attacking patterns of the opposition before potentially facing them again in a much more important setting. The 4-test structure could also change the way both coaching teams approach the series. In a normal 2-test or 3-test contest, coaches can sometimes be tempted to select their strongest possible side immediately and chase early momentum. 4-tests provide a different tactical landscape. Erasmus can make adjustments after the first match, identify weaknesses in the All Blacks, and change combinations if necessary. Rennie can do the same. A player who struggles in the opening test may be replaced, while someone who performs unexpectedly well could suddenly become central to the series. That makes squad depth absolutely essential, and it is an area where the Springboks believe they have developed a significant advantage. The experience of players such as Sia Khaleesi, Eben Etzebeth, Peter Steph du Toit, Handré Pollard, Cheslin Colby, and Damien Dayende gives South Africa a core of players who understand exactly what these matches demand. At the same time, emerging players are being integrated into the environment so that the team can continue evolving rather than becoming dependent on one generation. Erasmus has repeatedly demonstrated that he is willing to make bold selection decisions, and the current series could provide another opportunity for the Springboks to show their depth. But New Zealand have their own experience and talent, and Rennie has clearly created a squad that believes it can challenge South Africa. The 54-0 victory over the Sharks would have strengthened that belief, while the 38-21 win against the Stormers proved that the All Blacks can handle a physical contest when they are pushed. The challenge now is to reproduce those performances against a team that is significantly more experienced and far more ruthless. If New Zealand allow the Springboks to dominate territory, the pressure could become overwhelming. If they can maintain possession, move the ball intelligently, and force South Africa to defend repeatedly, the balance of the contest could shift. That is what makes the tactical battle so exciting. Rennie will want his team to play with confidence, while Erasmus will want to make the game uncomfortable for the tourists. Neither coach can afford to lose control of the match for long periods. For South Africa, the series is an opportunity to demonstrate that they remain the leading force in world rugby. For New Zealand, it is a chance to announce that the new era under Dave Rennie has genuine potential. The psychological importance of the opening test should therefore not be underestimated. If the Springboks win at Ellis Park, they will immediately put the All Blacks under pressure and reinforce their status as the team to beat. If New Zealand can win in Johannesburg, however, the entire series could change instantly. Suddenly, the confidence built during the South African tour would become even stronger, and Rennie would have a historic victory to use as evidence that his new approach is working. But regardless of the result, Erasmus has made it clear that his players are excited rather than intimidated by the challenge. He believes the magnitude of the series is understood by everyone inside the Springboks camp, and that is exactly how a team preparing for the biggest rivalry in world rugby should feel. The coming weeks will demand everything from both nations: physical strength, tactical intelligence, discipline, skill, courage, and mental resilience. The Springboks have the advantage of playing 3 of the 4 tests on home soil, but the All Blacks have already shown that they are comfortable playing in South Africa. The stage is therefore perfectly set. Rassie Erasmus has his champions prepared. Dave Rennie has his rebuilding All Black squad ready, and the greatest rivalry is about to enter another extraordinary chapter. For South Africa, this is a chance to continue their remarkable era of dominance. For New Zealand, it is an opportunity to prove that their new generation can challenge the champions. And with 4 tests between these 2 rugby giants, there is every reason to believe that the series will deliver drama from the first whistle to the final minute.